We learned how to make an API call and get the data from any remote backend or any remote server, whatever you want to call. Now let's actually use that data in our UI, right? So in the last video we saw that how we can log the data coming from the backend which was exposed to this API. Let's actually store that data in a state, in a React state, and let's use it in our UI, right? So first we'll be storing this data. So let me create a state called as data, and we'll have a setter function set data. We'll say use state, and we'll leave it empty. Let's actually change the name and let's call it anime data because we are fetching anime data. And we'll also update the name of function get anime data, and here also we have to update. Okay, now what we can do is instead of doing a console log, we can set the anime data with our past data. Awesome, right? So if we save this thing, obviously we are not going to see anything in the either in the terminal or in the UI, right? Okay, so if I want to access this thing, what I'll say anime data dot, but the problem is I absolutely have no idea that what this anime data is, right? So this is where like TypeScript becomes really handy. So what we'll do is let's actually use this particular API to get all the data instead of a specific anime. We have just changed our API URL, and now what we'll do is we'll copy this whole thing. We'll go to a website which is basically transform.tools, and the transformation type is JSON to TypeScript. So what we are saying that I will provide you with a JSON and you please convert it to an TypeScript interface. So we have it now. We'll copy, and what we'll do is we'll create a directory called as src. Inside src we'll have models, and inside models we'll create a file called as interface.ts, where I will just paste this thing and save it, right? And I'll just change the name of root as iAnime data. Now what I'll say, this use effect is of type iAnime data, and we'll import it. Now if you hover over it, what we can see is that anime data is of type iAnime data or undefined, because the reason is it gets initialized with nothing, so that's why it's undefined initially. But at later point of time we are setting it with the past data, which is nothing but this data, right? What we are seeing. Okay, so now what we'll say is now what we need to do is in our JSX we want to first check if anime data is not undefined, because initially anime data is undefined, right? So that's why we have two different types of anime data. Either it's undefined or it has iAnime data. So we'll say anime data not equal to undefined, and if that's the case, and we'll say anime data dot what we can see now, this is an array, right? This particular data is nothing but an array. So we'll say map, and we'll have item, and in the item what we'll just try to return is a text component, and in text component we'll see item dot, let's try to get some details. Okay, let's just get the title. Now if we save it, it says that there is an error. Anime data dot map is not a function, it is undefined. So we'll just put a condition. Okay, awesome, right? So now we can see all the titles coming from this API, right? So now this API, if we look back to the result, what we can see is that we are saying that this API has a key called as pagination. It also has a key called as data. The data is the key in which we are interested. Now this data is an array. Now each array items has a key called as title, if you can see title, right? And the same title you can see coming here, cowboy beep, and then so on, right? Now the reason initially we got an error because there must be some title which is not present. So if it is undefined, it will straight away throw an error, and if I just refresh it, we should be able to see the error. Okay, this time there was no error, but yeah, it's a good practice to put a question mark. So basically by putting a question mark, you're just telling that, okay, if this property is available, then only I'm gonna access. If title is available, then only I'll access, else I'll not access. So now you can see that we have the list of titles, right? So this doesn't look very useful and very intriguing. So let's make a component, and in that component we can show the picture of that anime, as well as we can show the title and maybe some other information. So let's continue with that in the next video. Thank you.